Hello, everyone. Welcome to September and the end of summer in the Northern Hemisphere slash end of winter in the Southern Hemisphere. This month features the much anticipated eclipses along the Pisces Virgo nodal axes and the heliacal rising of Alphard and Regulus in most locations. Tiered members of my Patreon will meet on the 10th to talk about these fixed stars. So if you'd like to learn more, consider joining my Patreon, where I host the Orphic Book Club and offer live chat slash presentations on each month's heliacal rising stars. September is ushered in by Saturn retrograding back into Pisces and Mercury ingressing its sign of exaltation. Mercury is moving at its fastest speed now and will set under the beams of the sun on Thursday the 4th, then reach the end of Virgo to oppose Saturn by mid-month. Right before opposing Saturn, Mercury will conjoin the Sun on the 13th to transition from its morning star to evening star phase. Saturn was at the final degrees of Pisces earlier this year while conjunct the North Node and co-precent Venus and Mercury during their retrogrades. Back then, both Mercury and Venus conjoined Saturn 3 times in their transits, activating a stark awareness, perhaps even a wake-up call to long-held patterns concerning our relationships, our means of livelihood and finances, our security in community, and our resilience in the face of tyranny. Saturn is also an indicator of religions, dynasties, and whatever lasts for a long time in the greater scheme of things when considering world events. The Black Lord of time and decay, darkness, obstacles, and delays, slow growth, and longevity, our great warden of death and the Elysian fields, and the ultimate exorcist returns to Pisces one last time to allow us to give respectful attention to the restrictive forces arising in our lives that are testing our commitment to our growth in the areas touched by the celestial fishes. In this regress back through the end degrees of Pisces, Saturn is now answering by trine to Jupiter in Cancer instead of by square when Jupiter was in Gemini last year. Jupiter will come very close to perfecting this trine to Saturn when they're both at 25 degrees in November, right before Jupiter stations retrograde. The trine between Jupiter and Saturn was seen by Abu Mashar to indicate the appearance of propagandists and keepers of the law and the revelation of prophecy and secrets. Jupiter, in its throne of exaltation, dominates the heavens but confronts Mars by an overcoming square the first week of September. Peaking on the 4th, Mars square Jupiter reflects tensions around the corruption of laws, possibly indicating the end of matters or reaching a tipping point around injustices, infringements of human rights, and social imbalances. Now, much has happened since the end of May when Saturn first dipped into Aries. Each of the lunations between the Taurus new moon and Cancer new moon, including the Scorpio full moon, the Gemini new moon, Sagittarius full moon, were all besieged by the malefics, if you recall. When a planet is besieged, it is separating from aspecting one malefic and applying to the other. Besiegement generally signifies circumstances worsening as the planet in question is ensnared by hostile forces. And we have seen how these lunations marked literal besiegements of cities via the ice raids in the United States, the ongoing genocide in occupied Palestine and Sudan, the Congo, on top of the continued ecological collapse we're witnessing around the world. Instead of succumbing, however, the people's response has been to stand up against these worsening events. The moon here, therefore, represents the masses under siege, with Mars and Saturn reflecting the forces of tyranny and the war machine of the hegemonic powers. Saturn, in its detriment, ruled by the planets of war, exacerbated harsh circumstances, pushing the mobilization of people's movements across the globe. Now, back in Pisces, Saturn may dredge up dark currents figuratively and literally from the ocean's depths. There's yet another flotilla en route to attempt breaking the illegal siege the Israeli occupation has placed on the Mediterranean coast of Gaza as one example. And we've had a few lunations beginning with the Capricorn full moon to break the pattern of lunar besiegement, though there have been lunar besiegements, just not during the new or full moon phases. Now we are entering the dragon's lair with the final set of eclipses for the year. The lunar eclipse is the culmination of the lunar cycle that began with the new moon at 0 degrees Virgo when conjunct Regulus. And when conjunct the new moon, a fixed star is nearing the end of its lying hidden phase. So it's a potent seeding moment carrying the star's signification / influences forward into the new lunar cycle. Depending on location, that star will then make its heliacal rise a couple weeks later. I mentioned this on Threads app before the new moon, which was nearly copied verbatim by another astrologer with a larger audience. But the rise of Regulus is traditionally connected with the fate of rulers, so we can expect some chaos pertaining to heads of state if we consider its co-presence with the dragon's tail and being square to Uranus. We have seen this reflected in the talk across social media concerning Donald Trump's declining health and sudden, though albeit temporary, disappearance from the internet. So, and we've seen it with like uprisings in Indonesia and other places, forcing leaders to step down or cancel their vacations, right? The first visibility of Regulus in most locations between 5 and 45 degrees north latitudes occurs in the days leading up to the lunar eclipse in Pisces this week. And the day of the lunar eclipse, London and most locations around 51 degrees north will finally see Regulus in the pre-dawn eastern sky. Again, we'll talk more about this star and the heart of the Hydra constellation, Alphard, at our next Patreon live gathering on the 10th. September contains the only set of eclipses occurring along the polarity of Virgo and Pisces, whereas the eclipses earlier this year contained one in the sign of the previous nodal axis and one in the current nodal axis. So we had a Virgo lunar eclipse followed by a solar eclipse in Aries. Next year, we will experience the first solar eclipse in Aquarius in February, followed by a lunar eclipse in Virgo in March, and then a Leo solar eclipse and a Pisces lunar eclipse in August. So September 2025 can be seen as the year's turning point. The year 2025 is also marking the end of the first quarter of the 21st century and the new millennium. And we're 5 years into the air triplicity paradigm shift heralded by the Great Conjunction in Aquarius back in 2020. This eclipse season can serve as major catharsis for all that's been compounded and accumulated in these times. It can prepare us for the pivot that the Libra ingress will bring at the Equinox. This is the Orphic Calendar that I compiled for paid members of my Patreon. The Orphic Calendar reflects the first visibility dates of the month's heliacal rising stars along with key transits and the Hecatea, the Numenia, and the day of the Agathodaimon, which are the Hellenic hearth ceremonies that usher in each new lunar cycle. As devotees, we still offer Ekati her Deepnon and the ancient gods and noble spirits their libations on these days, eclipses or no eclipses. I have compiled a couple of resources on eclipse magic and taboos, plus spiritual hygiene for eclipses that you can find over on my Substack or Patreon, which I will link below. Finally, another transit highlight of the month is when Mars ingresses Scorpio the day of the equinox on the 22nd. Will we see a shift in military response or intervention in Gaza, or yet more inaction by global leaders? Mars will square Pluto retrograde to finish off the month of September, and unfortunately, this may reflect an increase in hostilities. Let's hope that this includes stepping up in defending the vulnerable, and the marginalized. Those of you subscribed to my newsletter have noticed that I've been taking a break from writing my lunation newsletter, in which I share info on each lunation's fixed stars, lunar mansions, plant sympathies, ritual recommendations, and more. But I may bring it back in the future. I would like to create more videos on the astrological topics that interest me and others in my community, and focus on writing on other writing projects. So you may start to see more content from me here. And if you made it this far, thank you for tuning in. And if you're new to my channel or my work, please hit the subscribe button, and please feel free to let me know your thoughts in the comments, and share this video to show your support. You can also support me by becoming a paid member on one of my tiers on Patreon, beginning at just $5 a month, or you can tip me through the links below. Let me know if you have any Virgo or Pisces placements being highlighted by this month's eclipses, or any other planetary activations through the transits. I'd love to hear your experiences if you're comfortable in sharing. So stay safe and stay smart, and I'll see you next time.